care. I don't care about the
I don't
fallacy.
care about
I don't
fallacy.
care about like the X, Y. I'm not really concerned about these things.
Whether or not something is given is not the predicating factor of it being a right or not. A right is just something that you are entitled to just by virtue of existing, like the autonomy of your body, like the right to food so you don't unalive, like things like that.
Okay, then we're using it entirely differently, because I would argue no one has a right to any of that stuff. Would you guys agree that a right is a social construction, at least?
No.
Okay, I'll argue that it is. But does the lady on the bottom disagree that the right is a social construction?
It's sissy.
But your rights are only like afforded to you based on the society that you operate in? Is that what you're asking me?
At the very least, at the very fundamental level, it's your ability to enforce it. If you can't enforce the right, or if you don't have anyone to enforce it for you, you actually don't have the right. It doesn't actually exist like say a tree or a chair. It's like a social abstract construction.
The only way a right doesn't exist is if you literally are the only person on earth.
I can explain how it does exist, and there can be multiple people on Earth. For example, you might think you have the right to your own property. However, if there's no police around and no government to protect you, whatever criminal is going to invade your place will violate whatever quote unquote right you think you have. Thus demonstrating that it actually doesn't exist in real life, in the sense that you can't point to it to protect you. It has to.
Okay, so it exists. You're just saying it's not a material thing. You're just saying it's not like a 3D object.
No, I'm saying it doesn't exist in and of itself. It has to exist by virtue of.
It does exist in and of itself. That's why, in the absence of cops and stuff, you would still defend your property, because it's your right to defend your property.
Yeah, but you're agreeing with me then, because I mentioned that if you can enforce, or if you can have someone else enforce you, then you would have a quote unquote right. But without enforcement, you actually don't have it.
Rights have to be enforced by like a ruling class in order to be a right.
Not a ruling class. It could just be like your community or your weapon and your property.
For it to be enforceable, it would have to be a ruling class, because Mookie just gave the example that you yourself could defend your own property, and you're saying that that's not substantial.
In the context of the small versus the many, the right would just go to whoever can.
So the small is a ruling class. Your right as the many has to be enforced by the small, by the ruling class.
I would say the monopoly on force. Whoever has a monopoly.
Oh my God, that is the small. Literally, you're just being semantical at this point. We're saying the same thing. So yeah, cool.
All right. So because rights are basically enforced by the minority, and the minority is men, men are the ones who grant the rights to women. Do you guys agree with that?
I wouldn't say that they're the minority. I would say that they're the ruling class, which is what my original contention was. But yeah.
Yeah.
Men. Yeah, men make up the rights that women can have. This is how it has always been.
So they grant the rights.
They don't grant them. They stop withholding them. Because again, I can protect my own rights. I don't necessarily need anyone else to do it. In the same example that you gave, if someone was breaking into my house, one person was breaking into my house, and I couldn't call anyone else to help me, I could still theoretically defend my property. I'm still defending my right to my property.
Yeah.
So just because we live in a society where we have a fuck ton of people, which necessitates a larger body of enforcement for things, right? That people can't just go around. I mean, if we could allow people to just go around governing themselves and trust that people would do it in good faith, I'm sure that would be the case. There are societies that do that, but that's not the case here. This is why we have a governing, a law enforcement. I mean, and we could really go into the origin of that if you want to, but it's not public safety or the protection of rights. It's actually the protection of capital. So again, my rights are not predicated on whether or not there's someone next to me to enforce them.
They literally are, because without men to enforce rights as a collective, you wouldn't have any. And men, if I could just finish a point real quick. So
points are stupid.
I mean, if I mean,
Like your
you might
points are
disagree
really
with it, but if
bad.
you can't refute it,
They're
then I mean,
really they're.
Well, I
I
mean,
am
okay, so
refuting it.
yeah.
let me
So
You're
I can't
just
refute
make a
not
you.
point. I
getting
just
it.
keep getting cut off.
I'm
So
totally
you
we
guys
are
are getting
refuting it
emotional.
impeccably. You're just
I love
not
to finish my
like
point.
landing it at all.
So I can land it
You're
in
the one
three
who's
seconds.
struggling. Go ahead, knock
I
yourself
can't land
out.
it in 3 seconds if I get cut off. So, like, as I was saying, because women get rights granted to them, and the reason why is because men have a monopoly on force, and they historically have. When it comes to military, policing, we make up the majority of it, a vast majority. We shadow the population of female participants in both ways,
By design
whatever. So because that's the
of this
case,
very
men are the ones who
patriarchy.
grant the rights, and women cannot. Women cannot grant themselves rights in contest to men, and there has never been a society on this planet that I've ever
Because
seen, ever, where a man has been overthrown by collective women. The only thing that you'll ever be
Cool.
able to demonstrate is that men give rights when women beg for it or whatever.
Cool. So my contention to this is that, again, to Mookie's point, your existence as a person, there are already certain rights that should just come with being a person. These rights are inalienable. The only reason that the majority that we would be speaking about in terms of power would not have them is if the minority, in this case, like the men, the oligarchs that we're speaking of in terms of patriarchy, is withholding them. So this is not, I made up this right that you can have and now I am giving it to you. This is, I had this right because I'm a person and I, as the powerful entity, am deciding who else can have this right because I'm the powerful entity. So this contention that men have given women their rights, men have taken them in the first place.
Yeah, but you're saying rights are inalienable. I dispute that. How do you
And I
have
disagree with you.
how do you have rights absent force?
There are certain things that just by
my
virtue of being a
fucking
person you
god.
are entitled to.
No, you're just
Yo, if
you
are
can
we not
assert
on
that all you
planet
want.
Earth where you can grow fruits and vegetables and there's water and you can find food? So why would I have trouble doing that unless someone was actively stopping me from doing that? Why would women not be allowed to vote unless there were men actively stopping them from doing that? Why would black people not be able to own property unless there were actively white people stopping them from doing that? You're saying we granted you the right and you are completely ignoring the fact that you took it in the fucking first place. It's not an altruistic thing that you did. It's not fucking, it's magnanimous. Okay?
Yeah, but you guys can keep claiming that rights are inalienable, but you can't demonstrate it. You're just saying because I
So we
exist, therefore.
can. I
Hold on,
literally
hold
am
on. Can I
demonstrating
just
it
finish?
because it would.
I just let you
No,
talk.
No,
Right, right, right.
no,
sorry,
you
you
can't
literally
because you
can't.
keep saying the same shit and you're
Right. So
saying
you
that
won't let
we're
me
not
talk. You just keep
refuting it,
muting me,
even
right?
though we are. Because I'm tired of saying the same thing. You keep
Right.
saying that no
You
one's
mute, you
refuting your
lose.
point. We are refuting it. You're just not accepting it.
You mute, you
A right
lose.
is a right by virtue of my being in existence. If someone takes this right away from me, it doesn't stop being owed to me. It just means someone has taken it. If that person then gives it back, they didn't do something altruistic and good. They didn't
You
just
mute, you
like
lose.
grant me something that I wasn't entitled to by virtue of their kindness.
Losers mute.
They gave me back the shit that I was owed. They gave me back the shit that I was always entitled to because they took it.
So you're saying
You don't get a cookie for that.
you deserve the right. Is that's what you're saying? You deserve it.
That is what
It's
a
not
right
about
is.
deserving.
A right is
Yeah.
something that you are owed by virtue of existing. That is what a right is.
So you're owed the
Which part
right.
is confusing?
You're owed the right, which means you deserve the right. Correct?
James, can I ask you something?
No, I'd like to answer the question real quick. I'll answer your question after.
I already
question.
answered your question. I
Okay, so
literally
you owe
already
it. You
answered
owe
your
it. You
question.
deserve it. And just because you exist, that doesn't mean you ought to have anything. You can't derive an ought from it. It's a fallacy.
So
Okay.
again, you're wrong.
Oh,
You're
so
just
that's not a
wrong.
fallacy.
Like you're just
Have you heard
wrong.
of the
And
is-ought fallacy?
you think that because you're going to dive into philosophy with me, it
No,
will
you
make
have a
it right?
fallacy. I just pointed out. That's it.
Okay.
So you're
Are
wrong.
you
Okay.
excited? Are you happy? Do you feel good? Do you want a cookie? You
I
think
mean,
good
I'm
boy?
already had pineapples, so
I'm happy for you, buddy.
I mean, yeah, you can make
For your
fallacious
little boy.
arguments all you want.
Yeah,
It is not
you guys
fallacy. It
really love
disproves
the
your own
word.
argument. It's arguments all you want.
Yeah,
It is.
you
It
guys
is not
really
fallacy.
love the
It
word
disproves your-
fallacious. You guys are
James is just
obsessed
upset
with the
because
word
he hates
fallacious.
women.
LOL.
You guys are so obsessed with the word fallacious.
Jesus
You
Christ.
just really.
I just feel like there was no reason for that to be that difficult.
I refute his existence, please.
Use
He
fallacies to
literally
win
hates women.
debates.
Yeah, he absolutely hates women.
I'm sorry that y'all gotta deal with that.
Buddy,
That whole conversation proved your point.
And then the simp white knights.
Like, let misogyny run rampant.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we didn't even get to the like. This started off as like a, it's all men until it's no men conversation.
Yeah.
We didn't even get to talk about that because he's so
Yeah.
No, because
contented on the factor.
yeah, and this is what people do when like their fundamental argument is bad. It's like they'll just keep taking detours. Well, what do you define as a right? Well, what do you define as this? Well,
what do you
are
mean
you
by
saying
that? Oh,
and like
against the
we're
strategic
not
plans,
ever
huh?
getting to the nitty gritty of anything.
I'm also I don't think if you need to like do twisters with philosophy and like the vague teachings of like 300-year-old people in order to make your point, I'm not interested. I'm just not interested.
Right? Yeah.
You can just assert
It
rights.
was not an like what was an is ought philosophy. I wasn't saying
Damn,
because I am born I ought to have. I was saying it is a human right. Rights are things that you get by virtue of existing. There is no ought.
You just said you're owed
It's just
it.
what happens in the absence of someone disrupting that natural sequence of events. It's just what happens.
Oh my god, I'm gonna cry.
That man has a